Now, I welcome, and I'm going to give a reintroduction here at the 6-minute mark, if you don't mind, Mr. Sheridan, when we bring you back. But I want to formally introduce you to the Pete Santilli Show. Welcome to the Pete Santilli Show, sir.
Thank you very much, Pete. I'm delighted to be here.
It's great to have you. And I said that it's a good segue to go from the topic of pedophilia, child abuse, to the very important topic of I'm learning so much about it, but these folks that are in power on Earth are, from what I'm observing and what I'm learning from good people like yourself, these are psychopaths that lack the empathy. They lack just about everything that most normal human beings would have, that would prohibit from committing these crimes. But we're being led by psychopaths on Earth here, aren't we?
More or less, even if they're not psychopaths, we live under what I call the psychopathic control grid. Basically, what has happened is that the prevailing culture, the prevailing sort of political, paradigm, and in particular the economic system the world is under, is basically a reflection of a pathological mindset that is unique to a psychopathic individual. Oh, yes. Now, even if they're not psychopaths, they're almost like sucked into the psychopathic Borg mind, and they feed, manipulate, and enable this system. So while they may not all be psychopaths in power, by God, do they actually emulate the psychopathic personality type?
That's right.
Which is ultimately responsible for this psychopathic system we live under.
Now, Mr. Sheridan, please allow me. I'm going to reintroduce you. We're going to hear music here. Come on to the Rents Network. I'll give you another introduction here to the Rents Network. Here we go. Okay, and we welcome the Rents Network listeners after the top of the hour news break, and I'm joined by Mr. Thomas Sheridan, who is an internationally renowned artist, author, satirist, musician, public speaker, independent researcher, and he's currently based out of the west of Ireland. And his illustrations have appeared in many different forms of media, magazines, books, websites worldwide. And we're talking about, and the reason why he's come to the show is to talk about something that I've wanted to learn more about in analyzing our leadership that is pretty much operating lawlessly, and in the majority of the cases, could just about be clinically diagnosed as psychopaths. And Mr. Sheridan was just sharing with us, and I look forward to having the conversation with him, was just telling us that either they are a psychopath or they certainly exhibit the traits of a psychopath, and our world is being run by these folks. But welcome, Mr. Sheridan, once again. Please continue on, though. It's very interesting that, yes, either they are psychopaths outright, or they exhibit the characteristics of a psychopath in the way they're running our world.
Sure, Pete. Well, you look at our system today, well, it's not our system, the system that's been imposed upon us. It's very much a hierarchical dog-eat-dog system. Now, that's tailor-made and geared towards and gives favor to the psychopathic individual. Like, the people often ask me, what is the ultimate expression of a psychopath's existence? And I always tell them, it's just business. They're only interested in getting what they need done, and they do not care about who they destroy, manipulate, use, damage, or discard along the way. They have absolutely no remorse, no compassion. They have no ability to actually put themselves in the position of another human being. And it's not just at the top of society. They actually exist all through society, from, the bottom of the pyramid right to the top. They're all the way through it. But unfortunately, the system has allowed it where the worst kinds, the most ruthless, and unfortunately the more intelligent kinds, who tend to be the most devious, have they've coagulated at the top of the pyramid. And this is reflected by how their pathological mindset has cascaded down through the different strata, right down to the bottom on the street. And they've created a society that's quite unnatural for human beings. I don't buy into this thing that human beings are naturally selfish, or they're naturally, self-absorbed and they only care about themselves, and humans are the cause of. No, humans are fine. Humans live fine with each other. Humans are tolerant. Look at a bunch of babies of different ethnic groups together. They get on fine. They do not impose an ethnic role or a hierarchy upon each other as babies. That's how we naturally are. That's how native people are. They've imposed a version of humanity upon us that is not us. And that's because it's the only way these psychopaths can maintain power, is by creating a system in their image. And fortunately, we're now living in a time where more and more of us are starting to deconstruct this puzzle. We're, like, use an artist analogy, we're stepping back from the painting and seeing the brushstrokes merge into an actual form. And the form is the psychopathic individual at the top of the pyramid running a psychopathic system, and we are just their fodder. And it's about time we started waking up to this system, realizing we can't reform them. The best thing to do is actually get away from them and start building a world of our own.
Oh, yeah, and to expose them as well. And, you and I and Liberty Tactics and, and Ben Fellows, and there is even an alternative to the alternative media, because I believe that the top end of alternative media, even so, is starting to act like the mainstream media sometimes. But we have to get the word out and educate people and show and expose who these psychopaths are, which generally they're the people in power. But let me ask you something. And you say, and I agree with you, that humans are not naturally, going to exhibit those psychopathic characteristics. But do you think that they do, especially when they're at that level? Is it gluttony, or is it a natural reaction for them to want to maintain their power, their wealth, when they're overseeing millions? Is that the way humans act when they can power over millions and billions of people?
Well, I used to work on Wall Street as a graphic designer. I actually worked for Goldman Sachs and companies like J.P. Morgan and Citicorp back then. So I saw it right at the very. I lived in New York for over a decade, so I saw at the high end. That's actually what inspired me to study this subject. And I can tell you that most of the people that work in those places are actually decent human beings. What's happened is they're held together by fear, and what fear does. See, the psychopath, the psychopath exists almost exclusively within the reptilian and lower complex areas of their brains, the part of the brain obsessed with fight or flight, kill or be killed. If you actually put a normal person's brain and a psychopath under an fMRI scan, and you actually give them certain emotional triggers, it's quite most spooky and remarkable thing. The psychopath literally lives in the lower brainstem. It's closer to an animal than it is to a human being. It's not that the frontal cortex and the limbic regions and the amygdala, where all this emotions and behavior and social interaction and compassion is actually, and empathy especially, is processed. It's not that it's broken or anything like that. They just choose not to use it. They literally switch it off, and they move right into the back of the reptilian brainstem of their actual neural pathways and neurology. Now, what makes this quite frightening is that I would love to see a survey done where they would actually take, say, a normal empathic person who went to work for, say, a major Wall Street firm, and as they moved up the actual corporate ladder, to see if their actual brain activity changes, where the neural pathways in the frontal cortex of the brain, and things like their mirror neurons, actually literally switch off and they move into the reptilian complex. I think that's actually what's happening. I think that the thing actually spreads like a disease. I don't actually mean it in terms like a bacteria, but I actually do believe that they actually become infected, these systems, these groupings, these pathological paradigms where the actual psychopaths have taken power. It's almost like an infection, and good people are driven to they're almost hypnotized by the actual power thing. The psychopath is the ultimate manipulator, and I actually saw people that I was friends with move up the corporate ladder, and they changed as people. Now, they didn't become psychopaths. They became what I would call proto-psychopathic, but they still changed and became a very nasty person, and a bad reflection of themselves, that they were not the same person they were when I first met them. And that's because they literally became infected by the psychopaths that were more prevalent as they moved further up the actual pyramid.
Right. And they're advancing as they meld into that. If they can demonstrate that they have the ability to follow those orders from the psychopaths, then they obviously financially benefit. But you know what? In the end, Thomas, tell me, in the end, do you see that these people ultimately end up walking away from it all and say, you know what, this is just not right? That's what's happening now, isn't it?
Well, that's absolutely a great point, because I'll tell you, I think it's going to happen. And I know that some people have said to me, well, that's remarkably naive of you. They're just going to walk away from power. And I'll tell you why I believe that's a very distinct possibility. If there's one thing psychopaths are fearless. They're they don't have, when I say fearless, they have a fear of being eaten or something like that, like an animal would have. They don't have anxieties like the rest of us have. Anxieties are processed within the frontal lobes of the brain, where their brains are inactive. But what they do have is a very primal fear of being found out. Psychopaths live in terror of being found out. And what gives us a great advantage here is that for some reason they're so easy to spot once you get to know the traits. If you read my book, Puzzling People, now you shouldn't go down the street going, he's a psychopath, she's a psychopath. It doesn't work like that. But if you can observe someone's behavior over a long period of time, and especially follow their life story, you can become aware that they could be psychopathic. Now, if a psychopath knows that you're onto them, I've actually seen this in, where I've dealt with them online and things like that. They will make a runner. They will actually run for it. They live in terror of being found out, because the psychopath is a one-trick pony. All they can do is be predators and be parasites and manipulators. And they really do live in fear of being found out. This will stop them, I believe. If enough of us, follow my work and follow the work of Dr. Robert Hare and people like that. I took the very complex science and brought it into something that was actually very readable for the average person. If we can actually do this, and enough people are aware of these psychopaths running the show, they will throw in the towel and walk away. In fact, I do believe that game plan is happening now. In my second book, Defeat the Demons, I predicted that the next stage would be, as more people became aware of what psychopaths are and how they function, but they would try to trivialize it. They tried that with John Ronson's book, The Psychopath Test. And then I said it was a very big-time mainstream book. And then I said the next thing they would do would be to try to make it seem like psychopaths are good for the world, that we would be lost without them, that we need psychopaths. And it's happening already. The BBC, even Scientific America, even the New Scientist magazine implied indirectly that the psychopaths, yes, they exist. This is, mind you, Pete, after years of them mocking people like me and saying that psychopaths are not that prevalent and they don't have positions of power in corporations or governments. And, they finally have to admit it. Now their thing now is they're trying to actually make out it's beneficial. It's not going to fly. The next generation of psychopaths are moving up the system, and I've seen this happen both in Ireland and the UK, have mysteriously and suddenly dropped out of politics because people were actually thinking to themselves, looking at them on TV, watching their behavior, especially following their life story, and saying, that guy or she is a psychopath, and I think we're actually going to win this one. I really do believe they will actually throw in the towel eventually, but we're going to have to actually push them right to the goal line. They're not going to give in easy. But that old adage is not a corny statement. When people say knowledge is power, this is the ultimate message with dealing with psychopaths. Everybody needs to get knowledgeable and up to speed on this topic. And you can actually solve it from the ones in your workplace to the ones in City Hall to the ones in the United Nations.
Thomas Sheridan, stay right there. We're going to come back. What energizes me is you say that their greatest fear is being exposed. And I mentioned that. We'll talk about what I said to Ben Fellows just prior, because it's important. It applies to this discussion. And you know what? I want to speak to you about what you may know about Hillary Clinton. She's a powerful force here in the United States of America, has exhibited very, very nasty traits. But we'll talk about that when we come back from this break with Mr. Thomas Sheridan joining me right after this message. There you go. We're back with Thomas Sheridan, and Thomas, I was telling you, it was just remarkable how you said that their greatest fear, and I'm telling you, I get very energetic about this because it's the business I'm in is in alternative media is to expose the truth, and I've been awakening to a lot of it, and I realize, and I said this to Ben Fellows, that despite all of the intimidation, I mean, they use assassination, war, no matter what it is, in order for them to maintain their power and wealth. No matter what it is that they can possibly use against us, the greatest weapon on earth is a population of 7 billion people who are wide awake to them, free-thinking individuals that once they're exposed, they can never use these tactics against us, I believe. So exposing them, I think that we could do this. We could tell as many of our 7 billion people here on earth who the culprits are, who the psychopaths are, and how they operate. and they won't be able to employ those tactics against us. And we won't have to fire one shot against them, will we?
Yes, and that's very important why Ben has come out and, gone very public with all that's been done to him. I've met Ben personally. I've hung out with him. He's a lovely guy. And, he's done the right thing. He's gone public with it. I mean, I've had problems here in Ireland with the globalists myself. I've actually had a warning recently, to not be so mouthy. And I actually immediately went public with it. They want you terrified. They want you in fear, because the psychopath, the psychopath wants to. The psychopath is a very interesting creature. I don't even consider it human at this point. It's almost like an automaton with that, it looks like a human, but it plays on the perceptions in people's minds. This is why in my last book, The Amble of the Psyche, I spoke about the lords of perception. A psychopath is phenomenal at creating a false reality for us to live in. This is called gaslighting, when they changed our sense of reality. It comes from an old 1940s Hollywood movie that was called Gaslight, that was about a psychopath destroying the psychology of his wife. And it's the same kind of thing where they actually change your reality construct around, where you actually think white is black and black is white, and you don't know where you're coming from. And they're very, very good at manipulating your perceptions. They're actually geniuses at it. This is why we've had people like Edward Bernays, who has enormous power in this, over the 20th to 21st century. The Lord of Perception, the Lords of Perception. They know they because they're not like us, they're quite different than us. They study us like an animal. They study us like a botanist would study a particular, flower. They study humans the same way, and they're so interested that they want to get deep inside our heads, deep inside our minds, and they've been doing this for a long time. And I find it amazing that as human beings, we're still doing okay, and we're still surviving, which shows how powerful we are. That they control all this stuff at us for the last century and a half. I'm talking about like mind games with psychology and all this kind of things and social conditioning. And we're still here, and we're still vital, and we're still alive human beings. Dynamic human beings. Shows how badly they're reacting to us, because we're not falling to pieces like they want us to fall to pieces. This is why they've controlled and distorted everything from rock music to sports to TV shows to sexual politics and sexual identity. They're masters of creating a false perception. So that's why
they use every aspect of our lives, and I've seen this as well, because my life, as I've come awake to all of these things, we use the term a lot, the awakening. But as I come awake to it, I realize that almost every aspect of my life has pretty much been fabricated, concocted, a perceived reality that I used to have before. Now I look at just about everything and see how artificial it is. Confidence through the media. Oh yeah, it's remarkable.
It's remarkable. And you realize that you're basically not who you were. If you follow the program or the process that they give you from, birth to your education and onto your life, you realize a lot of people then eventually realize that I am not really who I'm meant to be. I am a facsimile of the person that, nature or, the great plan or whatever it is, whatever controls your destiny, your consciousness, whatever. I'm a facsimile of what I was intended to be, or what I should be, and that facsimile has been artificially created by the psychopaths who run the world. And it's amazing that we're even waking up. We've been so brainwashed for so long. The fact that we're actually waking up in vast numbers now, it's practically a miracle.
It is a miracle. Do you have hope, especially through your efforts? I mean, you are actually making it happen. You're at the tip of the spear of the awakening in writing these books and identifying and outing these people. Do you think that we have a chance to wake up faster than they can enslave us?
Yes, very much so. It's like the American mythologist Joseph Campbell said that the greatest problem facing modern human beings is that we have not created a mythology to deal with the advances in technology. In other words, technology was advancing far faster than human social orders, human cultures, and so on. And it's almost like this discovery of the psychopathic system. And it's not just me, it's other people. And also, other people like, yourself, who've actually may not use the term psychopath, but exactly what you're dealing with, the same things, the same issues with this control system. It's almost like this is the new mythology. And my God, it is happening at an incredible rate. The book came out for me in 2011. I was an absolute nobody. I just was like a very minor artist, and I'm amazed how quickly it's steamrolled. And it's not just people who we call awakened. I can actually, you can actually give this stuff to your guy down the street, your friend or your neighbor down the street who still watches football on TV and votes, and they'll actually listen to it and go, that makes a lot of sense, because it doesn't have a supernatural aspect to it. It doesn't have a hysterical aspect to it. It's based on their science, which is what makes it so powerful. We're not using anything that's kind of conjecture or speculative. This is actually their science. There's a vast canon, an enormous repository of actual neuroscience, psychiatry, psychology, especially delving into studies of psychopaths, and it was all trapped in the world of academia. It was all trapped off and fenced off over there, and now it's flooding into the mainstream. It's flooding into the alternative, and this is something in the alternative movement we should be very proud of. We're actually really are waking up the world, and we're doing it almost like all this information and all this knowledge on how they control us was all actually stored away in academia or stored away in their working documents. And we, the alternative movement, went over there, and it's almost like we pulled the bricks out the dike that was holding all this information back. Some of us are going to get flooded and drowned as the rush of water and knowledge comes through. But the legacy we're leaving is a world that is no longer mysterious to the majority of mankind. They use the term waking up. It's absolutely true. But really what it is, it's a flood of new information and repressed information that we in the alternative movement have actually released like a torrent into the mainstream society. And we're doing it. We're getting there. We're winning, and it's going to happen. I've no doubt about it.
Absolutely. If you don't mind, I planned a 30-minute segment. Do you mind if I hold you over? Because we definitely have to speak about Hillary Clinton, because she is probably the most prominent example of a leader who creates a false perception and operates on a completely different plane than most human beings do. And I also want to talk about disinformation, too, because we can't go from where we are asleep to wide awake without recognizing there's a lot of disinfo that's thrown out there by the psychopaths. So would you mind staying with me for a little bit longer?
I'd be delighted to stay on, sir.
Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back. This is an important topic because we need to learn how to awaken and what to look for. We have to educate ourselves. We'll be right back.
Whether you like it or not.
There's only one thing better than a former Wall Street than a Wall Street bankster or executive, and that is a former Wall Street bankster executive. And Mr. Thomas Sheridan joins us, and actually we're going to be bringing Tom Hansen to the line for Tommy's Train Wreck of the Week. And we had a conversation during the break, and I just introduced the two of them. But welcome back, Mr. Sheridan. In this final segment here, and thank you for holding over. I wanted to talk about Hillary Clinton, who is, I say, near and dear to our heart. We literally have millions and millions of people that believe her to be something positive for our society, and it's quite, in fact, the exact opposite of that. We have people who are literally zombified by the false perception she's created.
She's a dangerous psychopath, and I fear for the United States if she gets into power. I really do hope the people of the United States pay very careful attention to her behavior, and there's one thing that can bring her down. And if these people are in denial or in cognitive dissonance watching this video of her, literally screaming like a giddy little teenage girl at a Justin Bieber concert when she found out that Gaddafi was murdered. She says on some American TV show, "We came, we saw, he died." And she giggles like a psychopath. That was a rush of norepinephrine, which is a stress hormone which flew from her reptilian brainstem right into her flooded her lower cortexes and triggered that emotional response. It wasn't an emotional response. It was like a predator who had just, scored a kill. Mm-hmm. She is an extremely dangerous person. Mm-hmm. I'm amazed that anyone cannot see through that. She's not progressive. She's not, liberal. She's nothing. She doesn't care about anything and anybody except herself. she would tear the world and she would tear the United States asunder to get into power, and she would kill every human being on earth to maintain it. She's an extremely dangerous individual, a terrifying individual, in fact. And I really hope Americans really, really start to look at her, the ones who are, who can't see her for what she is, and make sure, please don't vote for her. Don't vote her into power.
And this dates all the way back here in the United States. If you look at our history, George H.W. Bush being in the CIA and doing what he did while he was in the CIA, and we suspect, and we, of course, there's plenty of evidence that points in this direction, but we can never expose them, that he was involved with the JFK assassination. It changed our world forever, and the Bushes, the Reagans, the Clintons, and now the Obamas have maintained that same level of power and control through these generations like this. All, I would assume to be, all psychopathic, as we're describing here.
Yeah, well, you see, because the United States is so incredibly powerful and has been since World War II, when it basically became the ruling empire of the world. Not through the fault of the American people, I might add. It was the corporations and the military-industrial complex that turned the United States into an empire. It functions very, very similar to, to what you had in, say, Italy during the early Renaissance, and you had these noble families like the Medicis and the Borgias. Well, the Clintons and the Bushes, they're the same. They're the same. They function in the same way. They're the same kinds of dynasties that are absolutely obsessed with power and control. And that's all. That's all that drives a psychopath at the end of the day. It doesn't matter what they're interested in. They're only interested in power and control. So again, this is a situation that's been imposed, under the guise of democracy. This is not democracy. This is monarchy, really. It's not even an oligarchy at this point, like we have at the European Union. We're having the same families showing up and up over again, and they're all interconnected. And this whole farce that they say, I'm a Republican or I'm a Democrat, I'm liberal, that means nothing. That's all malarkey. They're just obsessed with keeping each other in power and playing a sort of chess game where, us little group of psychopaths will hold the fort down for a while and make policies while we're in government for you guys to come in next and take over. As long as our next group of next generation of psychopaths down the road are given a leg up the ladder by you guys. It's very, very devious.
I would say their obsessions also in maintaining their power, their wealth. Now we see this obsession right now to keep the people asleep and keep their anonymity intact. They are obsessed with following a herd of individuals, like people that are following alternative media. And they're saying, okay, what are these people waking up to? Let's throw disinformation out there. Isn't that what they're doing right now, very obsessively? And they've got a lot of money pouring into alternative media to capture those people that are starting to come awake and feeding them disinfo, aren't they?
Big time. This is something. Just because we've reached this part of the plateau doesn't mean we've reached the top of the mountain. We're at base camp 2 or something now. We still have to get to the top of the mountain.
Perfect analogy. Yep.
Yeah, they're going to try and divert us back down the mountain again. And they're going to try and do it by co-opting. They love to co-opt. My God, do they love to co-opt. And they will do everything to co-opt this alternative media. One thing in the alternative media that people must really look out for is when we're onto really good stuff, really hardcore, serious information that can bring them down, they do not try and divert it off into the world of flying saucers and aliens. They're going to flood the alternative media with cults who put up alternative news sites that are just being used to manipulate people away from the hardcore truth. This is something they've been doing for a long time, actually. This is what happened in the 60s. In America, you had a real waking up that happened in the 60s. And what happened was they flooded the West Coast universities with LSDs, and they actually flooded them with actual, flying saucer doomsday cults that a lot of people who would have been the next generation of Malcolm X's and, that would have brought us into the 70s were actually spooled off into this woo. And they're going to try and do it again, because psychopaths always follow a similar plan. So they're going to try and divert us somehow into an alternative main media that will eventually be destroyed somehow through farce and through scandal. They'll actually try and make us look ridiculous as possible. Again, it follows the same game plan I said with the psychopaths. First they deny it, then they ridicule it, and then they say it isn't so bad. They're now moving into the ridicule stage. We have to be very careful what alternative media sites we follow. Study the background of the people behind it. If you see anything to do with anything with flying saucers or aliens or anything like that, get away and go look for credible sources that do not have this baggage with them.
You know what? There are even those almost in a mainstream media-like way. And you know what? I'm going to say this because I'll tell you what. I have literally, right in front of our audience, awakened. I went from being a 10-year listener of Alex Jones and the InfoWars. He pretty much is the father of alternative media and has grown to the point now where he's exhibiting certain traits and characteristics to where I believe, based on what I'm seeing, that he may be co-opted. He may be that honeypot drawing everyone in to one day at some point in time corrupt and co-opt and demonize. We have this discussion all the time. Mr. Thomas Sheridan, give your website out real quick. We're going to actually provide links in this episode to you, and I'm sure this isn't going to be the last time we have you on the show.
Yeah, thomassheridanart.com. Type in psychopaths into the search engine and you'll get all the information you'll ever need. My book is called Puzzling People, The Labyrinth of the Psychopath. It is the ultimate primer on spotting, identifying, and dealing with psychopathic individuals and situations.
We're going to put your book in our bookstore as well. I believe that it's important. And, sir, we will certainly be in touch. Thank you very much for being on the Pete Santilli Show.
It's been a pleasure, Pete. Thank you to you and your crew and listeners.
Thank you. Awesome. I'm going to be back here right after this break. Tommy's train wreck of the week coming up. Lots for us to talk about. A week. Shoot, the world's changed in a week. We'll be right back. Holy freaking moly, man. Coming right into this next segment is like a train wreck. I'm just train wrecking right into Tommy's segment. And Tom Hansen, every single week, we talk about the ways of the world, the things that are happening, and a lot of stuff is happening. And by the way, Tom, since your last appearance, you arrive here on the Pete Santilli Show each and every Thursday to tell us what the hell's happening as we inch closer and closer towards complete and total collapse, I believe. That's my opinion. But the world keeps changing.
When that finally happens, Pete, we won't be able to talk on the phone.
We won't.
We'll all be running around. Well, I tell you what, you don't want to be right that right.
No, I don't want to be that right, but there's all indications are pointing towards some very weird things going on. You know what? Let's do this. Can we start out, do you mind? Let's talk about the financials. Right now, that's obviously hottest on the platter. You've been calling certain things about the triple tops and whether things go bearish or bullish. Right now, what market are we in?
We're definitely the beginning of a bear market. Mm-hmm. Well, a true bear market, you have to have a little bit stronger signals than you have here. This is like top picking. But I've seen these enough in my lifetime to know that it's worth a shot because of what happened 2 Fridays ago. And anything after that would be a sale. And also mentioning that gold, I think gold was like 1470 or 1450 at the time. I said it's going to get killed again.
Right.
It'll probably go down to 1,000 this time.
What?
Yep.
Really?
Yeah, it's going to get destroyed.
Dude, you are the freaking.
That's a healthy retracement. I mean, it's happened before when it went to 800. It dropped like 40% of its value after that. It dropped like $200.
Now you're talking, dude. This show needs a doom and gloomer like Nouriel Rubini, right? Or freaking.
Yeah, but you got to understand if the shit hits the fan,
what?
Like I've seen, when people really panic in like in '87, dude, anything that you have value in, you sell. That's the way it works. I mean, you got people. Imagine like if you have money in an account and you're trading, you're not trading, and somebody else is doing the trading for you, and next thing you know, it's just the world goes wacko, and you don't even know what's going to happen. The only thing you could think of is pulling your money out. You don't care anymore. I said, well, I've been in here for 5 years and made a bunch of money. I'm pulling my money out.
Right.
But just by those actions alone, because that's what really runs Wall Street is big hedge funds. That action alone causes everything to counter trend, no matter what it is, because people just yank all their money and the funds have to comply. They have to.
Confidence
can't say, dude, you can't get your money back. Oh, bullshit. You gotta give them his money.